Health Matters with Karen Key.
Well, Julie Fulmer has dedicated her life to helping people steer themselves and their relationships through difficult times. Now, she does this by empowering them with coping strategies to help them bounce forward when moving through many of life's challenges. And not too long ago, she found herself coping with one of life's curved balls. Julie, good evening. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Karen. Thank you very much.
So tell me a little bit about who you are and where you came from to get to this point now where you are helping other people. Because you initially, I believe, what I was told about you is that you help people who are, not suffering, but people who are dealing with having a chronic illness within a marriage, which, I mean, a marriage in itself is an up and a down thing, as we all know. And then dealing with something like a chronic illness in a marriage, it just adds to that.
Absolutely. My story goes back about 20 years when I met my husband, Rob. He was born with diabetes and, in fact, wasn't expected to survive his childhood years, let alone his teenage ones. He did, but it came with the consequences and the complications of diabetes. And at the age of 24, he was blind, and in 29, he went into kidney failure. And we met as he was going into kidney failure, and it was just an incredible connection, and in meeting each other, we both met our soulmates. So even though he was given the prognosis of only a year to live, we chose to get married to make the most of that 1 year and just live life to the full, enjoy each other's company, and sort of take the consequences. And that first year, we really did live to the full. And it actually turned out to be 17 years. So we had an amazing time together, but obviously being both in kidney failure, well, having the diabetes and being in kidney failure, he became more and more disabled and more ill over time. And subsequent to his passing in 2010, I've just had a number of people talking about how we coped and what a lovely relationship we've had. And I've chosen just to share some of the pointers that worked for us. Obviously, every marriage and every relationship is unique, and it takes two to tango, and you somehow both have to work out that you're rowing in the same direction. So it's not easy. One person, I don't believe, can do it alone. But I've just been sharing, and I don't actually think it only applies to married couples or where there's a chronic illness. I actually think it applies to all relationships, all interactions between people.
But just to come back to the chronic illness part of it, Julie, do you think it's more difficult if somebody goes into, like you did, go into the marriage knowing what you were getting into, or whether people have been married for a while and then a chronic illness enters the marriage or the relationship?
You know, I think so much has to do with the foundation of the marriage. I think it's very hard to say one is more difficult than the other. I think, though, from my perspective, having experienced it going into the marriage, knowing that there were problems, was for me probably easier to deal with, because when it did reach times where I thought, I can't do this anymore, the demands are so high, I also had to check myself and say, you chose this. You knew that it was not going to be easy, so now get on with it and sort it out and work out methods to enable you to be able to cope.
Because, I mean, the statistics actually say that I think it's about 75% of marriages dealing with a chronic illness will eventually fail.
I think the number's very high, and I think there are just so many reasons for it. And also when you do get married, you're not expecting a chronic illness to venture into your relationship. And so there's a lot of adapting, a lot of changing. And I think what often happens is the well spouse or well partner sometimes falls into martyr mode, sometimes tries really so very hard. And the person who has the chronic illness doesn't want to be there and has frustration and has anger and needs to express it, and the closest person they feel comfortable to express it with is the very person who's caring for them. And so if you don't have a strong foundation and the capacity to be open with one another and trust each other, then those kind of additional stresses are really, really difficult to work through. And I really feel that in those situations it's very important to pull in a third party, some kind of external or community assistance, be it in the line of the neuro-linguistic programming you were talking about, or faith-based organization or psychotherapy, but something that is going to enable you to actually continue speaking the same language.
I loved your donkey rule. For those who think I've gone completely crazy, it's what Julie calls the donkey rule. It's NIOR. It's NIOR. Our no if only rule.
It was the most incredible philosophy to live by. And the whole concept was no if onlys. So if you've made up your mind that in my life I don't want to spend any time saying, if only I'd done this, if only I hadn't done that, I should have, I would have, but to rather say, I'm so glad I did, and to fill one's life with happy and positive memories, then one has to make the choices and the decisions that will most likely give you that result. And so it just meant that every decision we had to make when we had to determine which way we were going to do something, it was, will this leave me with an if only? Probably. Okay, then how else could we do it? And I must say that both of us, I think, were very blessed with a very happy marriage. And I believe a lot of it came from that philosophy.
You said, and I'll quote you here, and I thought it was really, you said something like this donkey rule that you call our no if onlys. It helps to create a journey of joy and peace filled with amazing positive memories. And that's what we all strive for, I think, in the end.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important to know that in the end, we all have the power to make our own choices. And it doesn't matter what happens to us, but it's how we respond. And with a positive response, we create a positive cycle. People around us like positive people and positive responses, so their support becomes greater, and that gives one energy. And if one chooses to respond negatively to situations, one puts into place a whole negative response, and with that, people move away, things get more difficult, we move into the depressive sphere, etc.